here. All right. Review day, sort of. More like me telling you what to do to prepare for the test. So took way too long, but I feel really proud of my practice test that I made. And so what I always do is I make the first I make the practice test, and then I make the test off of the practice test. So because that way they're really linked. So that's what I want to make sure. But it just adds another component. So so today we're gonna I'll show you guys around. There's the practice test on WebAssign, and so that's how you'll expect to see the actual test. So that's how you'll get your questions. I wanted to ask you guys if you're able to, and I'm not saying that you have to or anything, but are you able to download a PDF of the assignment or no? Or like of anything on WebAssign? No? Okay. That's okay, I was just curious. So pretty well all the questions, everyone's gonna have different numbers. But what I can do and what I wanted to see if you guys would want, okay, so there's a print assignment button. Okay, that's not very helpful. I mean, I guess, but you don't have to do that, don't worry. I'm not assuming that anyone has a printer or anything like that, so so don't worry. But what I wanted to see, okay, cool. So you could print it as a PDF. I'm just thinking if you wanted to kind of have the questions somewhere else, but anyways, I was just curious mostly if you guys can do that or if that's just me on my end. Anyways, doesn't matter. What I was thinking I might do is make a blank test. So what I would do is I would leave the question numbers blank, because sometimes it is nice to, and if you do have a printer, like I said, I don't know, then you could use that to write your work out, right? Because you do have to show all your work. So, so I'll put something like that together, and you can use it if you want to. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Okay, so test number 1 on Wednesday. And so the practice test, I've got one version of the practice test up there. I can post another practice test, but only the first one. I'll use that as an assignment mark. How about, because you are still putting in time, and so make it worth it. I think I set the due date to Wednesday at midnight, maybe. Practice test number 1 available on WebAssign. I think it's due Wednesday at midnight. Wednesday, October 7th at 11:59 p.m. If you don't like 24-hour time like I do, 23:59. Okay, so you're gonna do your work, and so some of those questions, there's really no work required. Most of the questions I wanna see, you know, something, even if it's just something silly like 3 choose 2, if that's the work, right, that you're doing. 3 choose 2 is, 3. Okay. So something like that. If you use your calculator, you could even skip this step. That's totally fine. Okay. I know, I'm like feeling pretty good about it. Yeah. 3, choose 2. So just show all your work. Show all your work. Right, even something like that. Yeah, so if you're using your calculator, which I encourage you to do, oh no, you can use, then you can go straight from 3, choose 2 equals 3. You can skip this part. I was just doing the math in my head, right? Or 3, choose 2 is fine too. However you write it, right? Those are your 2 options, and they mean the same thing. Okay, so you're going to show all your work, and the reason, so I sent out an email last night. It was late though, so I don't really expect, I saw some of you have already signed into Gradescope, and that's awesome, but I'm really not expecting you to have signed up quite yet. But let's make sure that we're all signed in by the end of today. Because what I want you to do is I want you to try to upload an assignment, because it'll ask you where question 1 is, where's question 2, where's question 3. And so I'll show you, and I think I have to show you on my desktop, not on my iPad. It probably works, but I have only tried it on my desktop, so I don't want to. So I'll do a little switcheroo here. But you're going to show all your work on a separate, just on written work. So all written work will be submitted to Gradescope at the end of the test. You obviously don't want to submit it until you're all done. Okay. Any questions that do not require any work, and I mean like any work, if you are finding yourself doing any sort of justification or anything like that, then you should write that down and have that in your written work. You always want to give me as much as possible, right? And it is open book, so I am assuming that you have all your resources. And hopefully as you go through the practice test, you'll see that the questions, you've already seen these questions in the assignments, right? So just new numbers, it'll be different because they're in a different format. So it will be a little bit, yeah, you have seen these questions before. And if you've worked through those assignments, which I know you have, then it'll be the second time you're seeing them. And then on the test, it'll be your 3rd time, or I guess 2nd time. Yeah, so it's open book in the sense that I'm not going to try to control you. You're at home, presumably writing this test. I don't know, what can I do? So I trust you to not work with each other, because that you're not allowed to do, but use your resources, use your notes, use your assignments, use everything that you have. because that's what I'm expecting you to do. So any questions that do not require any work, leave a note saying so in your written work. Okay. So the test, okay, so the test is going to be the same length as the practice test. So the practice test is basically, you know, essentially the same thing as the test. It'll be different questions, but the types of questions and the length of questions are going to be the same for the test. So what I want you to do at the end of your written work, so if you could keep track of how long it takes you to do the practice test, kind of how long you would need to actually sit down. So if you're interrupted, of course, you don't factor that in, but how long it takes you to write it, because I do want to make sure that it's not too long, right? And so, because it's really hard for me to judge when it's kind of online, but you're doing written, and so I don't know how long that's going to take you. It's 34 questions right now, but I mean, that doesn't really tell you much. So for the practice test, keep track of how long it took you to complete and submit. This is optional, obviously. If you don't want to tell me how long it took, then you don't have to do that, but it would be really helpful in case you're finding that it's too long. Will there be a cutoff? Yeah, so the WebAssign will close right as the class ends. So, and then the grade scope will be open for another hour after that, just so that you can get sorted and kind of focus on the grade scope after the test is submitted. Okay. Oh yeah, so for the practice test, keep track of how long it took you to complete and submit as question number 35 on grade scope. Okay. Oh yeah, so I want you to answer on the WebAssign, but that's only going to be part of your marks. So even if it's wrong, because you don't have that very satisfying green check mark or something to tell you that it's wrong. I love that green check mark. It's so good when you get it. So you won't know if it's right. But that's okay, just submit your answer, and then if it's right, then I'll just glance at your work. If it's wrong, what I'll do is I'll go and I'll look at your work and see kind of if there was good logic there, or you know, how many marks should be done. So the written work is for part marks, just like in a normal test, right? Usually you look for the right answer. If it's not there, then you go back and you, okay, what was going on here? And so I'm trying to do the same thing that we would. But yeah, so definitely answer on WebAssign. I would say the WebAssign is about 50% of your mark. I think it'll be a 50-50 split. But I'm holding off on committing on anything there because I want to see how it all plays out first. Oh yeah, so test number 1, just to address the length of time that we have. Oh yeah, so no, I would say if you got a close answer, but it's marked wrong on WebAssign, then, like I said, if you have good work there, then that's some solid part marks, right? So that's what I mean. I'm holding off on kind of putting a label on it, 50-50, 75-25. I don't want to do that until I see the grades. And don't worry, I'm always pushing for the best grades that we can get. Okay, so I'm not out to get you or anything. We'll just kind of see how it plays out. Okay. So test number 1 will be open from, when do we start your time? 2. From 2 o'clock until 3:50, our class time. During class time. Okay. It will automatically close at 3:50. Okay. And then, so 2 to 4, and then it's so hard because in my head, because it's 3 to 5 here, but that doesn't help you at all. So I'm trying to think, okay, so then from 4, and then the grade scope will close at 5. Okay. So, and then the grade scope will close for submissions at 5 o'clock. Okay. So, I've got the grade scope key. The grade scope, I think they're calling it a key, I don't know, to sign up for our course is 86. Yeah, I'm born at 86. Feels good. GK3Y. So what I want to do is I want to switch so that I'm sharing this screen. Anyways. Share screen. Okay. So I'm going to switch screens here. Share. Zoom wants access to my life. Guess I'll give it to it. Okay, I think I did it. Now can I do it? Continue. Okay. I think. Where's that chat? Okay. So you guys are all sad. Hey. come you guys are so small here? It's even smaller. Oh well. If you need me, catch me in the chat. All right. I want to go to, so you go to gradescope.com. And if you have an account, then of course you log in. If you don't, you can sign up. And you go in as a student, and then here you would enter that 86 capital G, capital K, 3 capital Y, and then your name. It would be really helpful if you used your real name, but if not, I can link you by your student ID. So, and then of course, whatever email address that you want. It used to be that you had to use an Okanagan College account, but I think because I signed up with Hotmail, I know. But I signed up and it seems to be working fine. So they must have fixed that glitch. But anyways, I'm gonna go, because I made a little Emily the student account. Clever, right? Hotmail.com. Okay, so once you sign in, it should look like this. Okay. And then, so if you go here, right, got options to have more than one course. If you go to the practice test, oh, I did a test run, but what I want to do is, oh, how can I delete? Regrade. I don't know how the regrade stuff works, but how can I? Oh yeah, it's got this timeline of when things are due, so that's good. How can I? Okay, well, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna resubmit. I just took a random document. This has nothing to do with you guys. It's for my pre-calculus class, but I just needed, so, okay. You have the option to submit images or to submit a PDF. I think it's easier to just submit as a PDF, which means that you would have to scan it somehow. If you need any help with that, then I can help you out, but I'm gonna just submit a PDF. And then so here, I'm just gonna pick some random PDF. I don't know. Let's do this one instead. No, I do not care about the color of pen or pencil. You can use whatever you want. You can use charcoal for all I care. Might make it hard though, and really messy. Hot pink. Hot dang. So here is, let's say, all my work, and you can kind of, yeah. Finger paint, yeah, go for it. So here is what it's gonna look like. So whatever you've uploaded, here's all my work. Yeah, so WebAssign and Gradescope are completely separate and different. So yeah, so Gradescope is just where you're gonna submit your, it's essentially just a Dropbox to hand stuff in. But what you get to do is you tell me where the work is so that I don't miss it, right? Because marking online, it can be kind of tricky. So what you do is, I've got kind of so I kind of summarized what type of question each question is on WebAssign, and then they're just worth 1 point each. So what you can do is you can click on question 1 and then click on whatever page has question 1. And then you'll see that it comes up down here, and you can move things around. You can do lumps of questions, so you could do question 2 and then just hold down the shift key. The numbers 3, 4, 5, and 6 were on the second page. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I want to see you using Gradescope for the practice test, but only so that you get the practice, so that you know what to expect for the test. So, oh yeah, so a real question. Hey, yeah, are you using physical pen, paper, or tablets? If you got a tablet laying around, might be easier. Yeah, whatever you think is going to be the easiest. Like, so, oh yeah, writing with a mouse. Ugh, yikes. No, that sounds terrible. Hey, Scribble.io. Cool. Okay, so which ones did I do? I did 1, 2, 3, 4. So what you want to do is so you should have WebAssign already, and then Gradescope is free. So if you don't have WebAssign, then we can talk about that later. But I'm pretty sure you guys all have WebAssign, so yeah, cool. Sorry, I can only see little faces, but good. Okay, cool. So, but if you don't have WebAssign, then just let me know. So what I'll just do here is I'll just assign all these questions, blah, 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 blah. I tried, it wouldn't let me do multiple questions. I had to tell it where to go and how to get there. 27, and then let's do 28, 29, 30 were somehow on this first page. That's weird, but whatever, sometimes it can happen. And those last ones. And then notice that I put the question 35 on Gradescope is the time required to finish the practice test. So that's where you would tell me how long it took you to do the test, and you can just tell me where it is. So that's Gradescope. You can also assign pages sequentially. That would be assuming that you have one page of work per question, which might not work out that well. If you have really short questions, then you're using a whole page for that question. But yeah, so you can try things out, but just get comfortable, and then when you're done, just hit submit, and you get a little receipt that you've submitted something. Okay. So I'm gonna go back. Where are we? I'm gonna stop this. Hey guys. We'll go back here and start sharing this again. So we can make a couple more notes. But hopefully you'll find your way around web or Gradescope pretty easily. And yeah, it's a good idea to just practice uploading your work so you know what to expect after the test, because an hour seems like a lot, but if it's your first time doing it, then it's not that much time, right? So I just want to make sure you're feeling good about signing up for or submitting stuff on WebAssign. Okay. What were some other things that came up so long ago in the chat here? There's one thing. I think Jane asked if, oh yeah, so I want to see your written work, even if it's little kind of mouse scribbles on something. I think there are better options, right? If you just write pen and paper, and then you can get a free scanning app on your phone, and they're usually really good. So, and then we wanted to do a difference quotient. 1 over x squared was kind of a yuck. And okay. Any questions before we go ahead and do a little difference quotient? Maybe not so little. Okay. So if you do have questions, oh, that's during the test, okay? I'll be here hanging out. I'll be on mute, obviously. So if you do have a question during the test, then you can just ask me. If you want to, you can message me privately. If you're kind of weird about asking a question in front of everyone, that's totally fine. Yeah, so if you have questions during the test, I will be here in the Zoom room, okay? So if you have questions during the test, I will be in the Zoom room. And if you want to, you can message me privately. And if you want to, you can message me privately. Right. If you don't want to ask in front of everyone. No pizza toppings. Felt so good deleting those. Delete. Oh yeah, so I don't need you to be on Zoom. I'll be here. Pizza toppings dressing disorder. Yeah. So yeah. Okay, sounds like you got it figured out. Okay, no pizza topping. I will be here in Zoom. You don't have to be here. I'm not gonna watch you. You can do whatever you want. I think that would be really stressful to have someone watch me. I guess that's a normal test situation. Anyways, it's all kind of weird. I'm just here if you have questions. So you know where to find me. You don't have to be here. Yeah. Oof. Is that the pizza topping one? Yeah, the pizza topping one. Nasty. And even the, I'm still not 100% sold on that blog that I posted. Anyways, so nice that the second question was just the answer in the blurb. But anyways, also weird. Yeah, so the answer is way down in the comments, but then it's like plus 1271 or something like that, and I don't like this or that. Anyways, leave it behind us. Focus on the practice test. If the practice test feels good, then you will be prepared for the test. Okay? Well, I will say this. You do not need to be in Zoom during the test. Oh yeah, there's a new James Bond coming out. It's important. Really fun. I have to disable my news feed on my iPad. I don't know, it just did it with an update. So you do not need to be in Zoom during the test. But I will be here for questions. Thanks, Zach. I'll have to look back on that. All right. Difference quotient time? Okay. Oh, and there was a card question too. The card question today. In how many ways can 4 aces, let's deal with that one first. In how many ways can 4 aces, you're going to be very disappointed when you see, you won't believe what happens next. In how many ways can 4 aces be drawn from a deck of cards? Order is not important. Okay. So, yeah, so the tricky part about this one is you want to draw 4 aces. So you want 4 aces from a deck of cards. The deck of cards is kind of throwing you off a little bit. Yeah, so much for a fun poker night, right? No cards, no pizza, thanks. We'll see what else I can ruin for you guys in the other assignments. Candy, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what's coming up. So 4 aces. No more parties. The key is that there's no mention of any other cards. So what this is saying is this is implying a 4-card hand, which at first glance, it's not obvious, right? That you're drawing just 4 cards. And so if you're drawing from a deck of cards, there are 4 aces to choose from, right? And so really what you want to do is you want to pull all 4 aces, and that's it, right? And so it's a little bit of a sneak attack because you want to incorporate the 52 probably, but really all you're doing is you're saying, okay, well, the ones that satisfy the criteria that I'm looking for, there are only 4 aces, and I want to choose all 4 of them. Choose because the order doesn't matter. And so what you end up with is 4, choose 4, and there's only one way for that to happen. Total aces. Order doesn't matter. Aces needed. Yeah, and there's some good advice there. You can take the rest of the cards and throw them in a ditch. But so that's the trick there. Yeah, so there's only one way to draw 4 aces, and yeah. So whenever you're specifying what kinds of cards you're looking for, you have to, this first number is going to be however many of those cards are available, right? This is actually kind of a hard question. Well, it's not a hard question once you figure out what's going on, but it doesn't behave the way you think it does, right? You want to pull from a deck of cards and you want to pull 4 aces, right? But you really only have 4 aces to choose from, and you need 4 aces, right? Same thing if you want, is it the flush where it's 5 of the same, right? That would be 13, choose 5. Yeah, little tricky. Okay. But now we've got it. Cool. I know it's a real womp. But once you've seen it and you know how it works, then it's not that bad. Okay, so that was the card one. Oh yeah, so if you wanted the probability would be 1 out of all possible 4-card hands, right? But we're not talking probabilities here. We don't get to do that. So we're just talking possibilities. I don't think there's any probability. Now I'm drawing a blank, but no, I don't think there's any stats here. Pretty sure. Oh, the Little Caesars question, I posted the solution. It's a blog. It's posted on Moodle, so we're not going to go through it because it's not on the test, so I'm not going to spend our time on it. But let's do the difference quotient, or a difference quotient. How about that? But yeah, the Little Caesars one is, there's a link on Moodle with the solution. It's way down in the comments, but it's there. So the difference quotient is f of x plus h minus f of x over h. The difference quotient is question 33 on the practice test. Oh yeah, and just a heads up on WebAssign. So for the practice test, I set it to 5 submissions. I guess I could do more. I don't know. It just defaults to 5. But I set it to show the solutions after 2 submissions. So if you don't want the solutions, then just kind of avert your eyes. but I thought it might be nice to have kind of like a, oh, here's how you do it, and then you can kind of work through it. Okay, so for the difference quotient, if we let f of x be 1 over x squared, okay, there are a couple of different approaches we could take. We could figure out what f of x plus h is on its own. F of x, we already know what it is, right? So we need to know what f of x plus h is. And it might just be cleaner if we're just starting with difference quotients to not just plug in f of x plus h in here, but to figure out what f of x plus h is on the side and then plug it into the actual difference quotient. So if we have to find f of x plus h, the key here is that if f of x is 1 over x squared, okay, wherever you see an x, right, if f of x is 1 over x squared, wherever you see an x, you're going to replace it with x plus h as one thing, right? So this becomes 1 over x plus h squared. Okay. Now I'm trying to figure out what my easiest approach might be, and it might just be to use this, right, and not expand it out quite yet, because I'm going to have a fraction over minus a fraction here. So if I'm subtracting fractions, I need to have a common denominator. And so what I'm going to do here is the difference quotient is f of x plus h minus f of x over h, which in this case, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put big square brackets around f of x plus h, just to remind myself that this is one thing, minus, and then do the same thing for f of x, 1 over x squared over h. So now these brackets aren't actually doing anything except reminding me that these are from two separate things, right? And so what I need to do is I need to get a common denominator. And so I totally cheat and I do it not the beautiful way of finding the lowest or the greatest common factor, but instead I force them to have the common denominator of this times this, okay? And so I brute force a common denominator, and it works every time. There's no reason not to do it, except it's not very elegant a lot of the time, but it totally works. So I'm just going to do it. So to get a common denominator of x plus h squared times x squared, well, this f of x plus h has to get multiplied by x squared over x squared. I can multiply something by 1, and that's a really kind of common thing that, or trick that we use, is multiplying by 1 is allowed because it doesn't change the value, right? And so what I can do is I take this value over here and just do x squared over x squared. And then over here on this term, well, now I need to have x plus h squared in the denominator, right? Which means I'd have to multiply this term by x plus h squared over x plus h squared. So what that looks like, and I'll use a different color just to highlight what's going on, x plus h squared times x squared over x squared minus 1 over x squared times x plus h squared over x plus h squared. Oops. all over h. Okay. So here, I'll make a little note here. Forcing a common denominator of x plus h squared times x squared. Or often I'll write the smaller one on the outside here. X squared times x plus h squared, it doesn't matter. And here, because we're multiplying, we could bring the x inside the brackets, but I'd still be squaring. So it's not going to make a difference. I'm just going to keep them separate to remind myself again that I have found this common denominator already. So what we end up with here on top in the numerator is we have x squared over x squared times x plus h squared minus x plus h squared over x squared times x plus h squared all over, oops, h. That guy got run over. Hey, it's because he's hanging out. There. Okay. So that would be the first step, is that we need to have that common denominator. Now that we have a common denominator, we can subtract the numerators and put them over that common denominator. Okay. So we get x squared minus x plus h squared all over x squared times x plus h squared all over h. Remembering that h, now I've got a page break I'm dealing with here, so h you can rewrite as h over 1, and maybe I'll do that in a different color. Because now you've got a fraction over a fraction, right? A fraction over a fraction, you flip the denominator and you multiply, right? And so when you've got that over h, usually to kind of simplify things, you'd have to write it as a fraction over a fraction. So here you've got a fraction over a fraction. So recall that a over b over c over d is the same thing as a over b times d over c. And then if you're multiplying fractions, you can just multiply across. Okay. And put this down here. Okay. So if I've got that huge fraction over just h over 1, right, then I can flip the h over 1, and essentially I'm multiplying by 1 over h. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to write that out, is here I've got x squared minus x plus h squared over x squared times x plus h squared times 1 over h. All right. Now what? Yeah, and then what? I guess we gotta expand. We'll see if we can expand anything and maybe simplify some stuff. Let's see what happens. Because it looks like I might be able to simplify some things. Remember that x plus h squared is x plus h times x plus h. I don't want to see the square being brought in here. That's illegal math. And so, oh yeah, will this question be on the test? There will be a difference quotient on the test. Is it going to be this hard? No. But it's good to have seen this hardest one and feel comfortable with it. No problem. Okay, so remember that x plus h squared is x plus h times x plus h, right? So now we've got x plus h times x plus h. So when you're expanding these, right, you can use FOIL or whatever you like. I don't actually love FOIL. It never made sense to me, but if FOIL makes sense to you, then I just expand stuff. I don't know. So we've got x squared minus x plus h times x plus h. Dealing with this multiplication at the same time, it's just times 1, so that's going to kind of go away, right? And then in the denominator, I'm going to have x squared. I'm going to expand this x plus h. Maybe I'll hold off. The only reason I'm tempted to expand this is because I can see that I'm going to get an x squared out of it, right? And then x squared minus x squared, that's what looks so tempting to me. And so I think what I'll do is I'll expand the numerator out. I'll leave the denominator factored like this, and then multiply by h just to bring it all into one fraction. And I'll write the h out front just so I don't forget about it. hx squared times x plus h squared. Now, you guys are probably better at expanding, quicker at expanding than I am, but I always just write out every term. X times x is x squared plus xh plus xh plus h squared. And so we get x squared minus, and then remember you have to have the brackets around here because this minus is minus everything inside here. So you want to make sure that you don't bring this negative in until the very end. So we've got x squared plus xh plus xh plus h squared over hx squared times x plus h squared. Okay. This negative, right? Exactly, you don't want to bring in any negativity until you absolutely have to, or want to. X squared minus x squared, we're so close, you're gonna go away. Sometimes you want those bad vibes. So x squared minus x squared, and then xh plus xh, I'm gonna rewrite as, oops, not plus, but minus 2xh minus h squared. Making a note here that this expands onto all terms. Okay. Over hx squared times x plus h squared. Okay. Now we'll see where we get to. Looks pretty good. Okay. Oops. X squared minus x squared, those are going to cancel out. So x squared minus x squared, and then I've got negative 2xh minus h squared. So I'll write this out in a couple of steps here. I've got negative 2xh minus h squared over hx squared times x plus h squared. Okay, so there are a couple of things I can do here. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to want to pull out a common h here and cancel it with this h in the denominator. That'll make things look a little bit nicer. But I'm also going to pull out a negative, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have negative h times 2x plus h over h x squared times x plus h squared. So now I've got h over h. I can only do that because I'm multiplying across here, right? So these h's are multiplying everything here and everything down here. So that's why I'm allowed to cancel those. And then, I don't really see anything else I can cancel here. Hopefully that's it. For a second, I thought I might be able to cancel an x plus h with an x plus h, but it doesn't look like I can because I've got 2x plus h over x plus h, so, or x plus h squared. So it doesn't look like it. That's all right. I'm ready to commit. My final answer, negative 2x plus h over x squared times x plus h squared. I've got confirmation here that that is indeed the answer. That's a relief. Fractions, right? 2x plus h. Where did the negative over x plus h squared go? But yeah, like I said, it will not be as nasty at all, but okay, so this negative here, it's in the numerator. You could put it in the denominator, but it can only be in one, right? Because if you've got a negative over a negative, then you get a positive, right? So it's kind of, you could put it out front here if you wanted. I'll often just put it in the numerator, but yeah. But you should have a negative. If you have 2x plus h up here, you could be left with negative 2x minus h, but that would be the same thing, right? If you brought this negative inside. And WebAssign should accept either answer. It should accept negative 2x minus h over x squared times x plus h squared, or the way we've written it. Yeah, good. So it is supposed to be clever and know kind of equivalent statements, but sometimes I've seen it fail. It's kind of, it's sold as this magical thing that knows all the equivalent stuff, but sometimes it doesn't quite work. But yeah, but it seems to accept either answer. I'll say, or if you want, negative 2x minus h over x squared times x plus h squared. Either way is good. I'm trying to think if I have where did I put it? I did grab a copy of the practice test. I'll see if there's a difference quotient on there. So you'd have to have, if you have the negative outside, then you have to have the brackets up here. If you don't have brackets, then you have to have a negative here and a negative here. And oh, I've just got the 1 over x squared here. Okay. Any others that, or should we do another difference quotient? Oh, so the children questions are, do you mean like, so if a family has 5 kids, how many ways can they have 3 girls and 2 boys? Something like that? Okay. So a children question, something like, if a family has I ditched the birthday party one, but the children one's on there, so we're gonna do the children one. But the birthday party sitting in a row, and they have to be boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl, right? The other option would be girl, boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, which would have the same number of outcomes, so you would just multiply it by 2. Okay. If a family has 6 children, make it a nice big number, how many ways can they have, and I'll steal it from here, 2 boys and 4 girls? Okay. So here, what we're saying, okay, if we have 6 kids, then I like to visualize things like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Then I could have 2 boys and 4 girls. This would indicate the order that they were born in, right? But then I could go and I could have a boy and then a girl and then a boy, girl, 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 or I could have a boy and then I could have a girl and then I could have a girl and then I could have a boy, slowly bumping that second B over, and there's going to be lots of different combinations. So, or we could have a boy, girl, 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 or we could have a boy, girl, girl, boy, girl, girl, boy, girl, 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 boy, girl. Notice that I'm just moving this B kind of along, and I'm trying to capture all the different combinations. Okay. Or this, etc. I'm not going to do all of them because there's a lot. But what we have here, right, is essentially how many arrangements, how many unique arrangements can I have of B, B, G, 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 G. So now you're talking more in the sense of like, if this was a word, how many different permutations can I have of this word, right? And it becomes the same problem, right? So really what we're asking is how many unique permutations are there of the letters B, B, G, 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 G? Right? So now what you're going to do is you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So remember, you treat the each letter as if it's unique. And so now we've got 6 factorial over however many you have in each category, right? And so you've got 2 B's and 4 G's. So you've got 2 factorial times 4 factorial. Another way we can write this is 6 and then 2 comma 4. It's kind of that choose function. It's from the very end of 12.1, I want to say. Is it 12.1? End of 12.1 or 12.2? No, 12.1, I think, because it's permutations. Okay. So here, right, this is how many letters you have, right? Just treating it the same way that you would one of those word permutations. How many permutations are there of the letters in a word, right? And then you would divide by the number of replicates, I guess you could call them. So this becomes, if you don't want to use your calculator, if you do, that's totally fine. 6 times 5 times 4 factorial divided by 2. 2 factorial is just 2, right? 2 times 1 times 4 factorial. Oops. 6 times 5 is 30 divided by 2. It's 15. So we'd have to go through and we could move the B's basically around in the G's, and what we would end up with is 15 different unique outcomes. So the key here is to figure out, or in your mind, to link it to how many permutations are there of the letters in a word. Yeah. So if you had 8 children, 3 girls and 5 boys, you would have 8 factorial over 3 factorial times 5 factorial unique permutations. Right? Permutations because the order matters. How many unique permutations are there of the letters in the word? I'll be really cliche, autumn. This is the same problem, right? It doesn't look like the same problem, but it is the same problem. So, because instead of just boys and girls, now you've got an A, a U, a T, another U, and an M and an N, right? So this is the same as treating each letter as if it's unique. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 again. 6 factorial over, there's 1a, right? Technically you'd have 1 factorial, 2 u's, 2 factorial, 1t, 1m, and 1n. A-U-T-M-N. Yeah, you don't have to write, so I would probably just say, or you can just write 6 factorial over 2 factorial, because 1 factorial is just 1, so 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 is still going to be just 1. So I just want to illustrate where these ones just went for the example, right? But if you want to just write this, that's totally fine by me. Okay. So you basically, you divide by the number of repeating letters or things in the same category. 6 factorial over 2 factorial. I'll just use my calculator. 6 factorial divided by 2 factorial is 360 unique permutations. But I want you to see that this is the same question, right? Or at least the same work to 2 different questions. Good. Any other questions? Oh yeah, so there was the birthday party where they have to sit in a row, but I took that out of the test, so I don't want you to worry about it. In the practice, figure out how many subsets does the set 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 have? It's a lot, right? Because you don't forget about the empty set, right? And then there's the full set, and then there's all the different combinations of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So it could be 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 2, 3, 2, 4, 2, 5, blah, 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 blah. But for the number of subsets, it's always going to be 2 to the power of n, where n is the number of things or elements in your subset. So to calculate the number of subsets, and this was, yeah, 2 to the power of n, and I think that might be from like our first day, or maybe potentially second day, but definitely way early on. So might need a little refresher, but to calculate the number of subsets for a set of n elements, use 2 to the power of n. Right. And so here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2 to the power of 5 is 32. Good. No worries. Okay. Any other? Oh yeah, so Dermot, I think you were missing the negative, but also the x plus h squared in the denominator, I think. The Venn diagram question with the college students. Okay. I think there are two Venn diagrams. Let me see, I can pull it up here. Maybe. If you tell me the question number, is it question 12 or question 15? Probably 12. But I can't see. Oh yeah. Okay, awesome. A certain college enrolled 29,000 students. So these numbers will change, but we'll do one together. And you can tweak it to your numbers. So let's do question 12. I'll just do kind of a shorthand. 29,000 students, 58% were female, 42% were male, 62% were over the age of 25. Hopefully I got all the numbers here. 58, thanks for pasting this, by the way. 62 were over the, how many students were in each category? If 30% of those over 25 were male. Okay. So then it gives you a nice Venn diagram that we'll use, but you could pretty easily make your own. Usually we'd have a male-female circle, but because we're assuming that it takes up the whole, kind of all the possibilities, so in this circle, maybe I'll do this. Over 25. Go back to, so here, we've got a total of 29,000 students. Okay. 58% of them were female and 42% were male. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna figure out 62% of the 29,000 were over 25. So just like Wyatt said, so if we start in the middle, and that's what you're going to want to do for all these Venn diagrams, as soon as you're filling in a Venn diagram, it's always going to be most useful if you're able to work from kind of the inside the onion to moving outside. And so what we'll do is we'll figure out how many were over 25. So 62% of the 29,000. So 62% of the 29,000 are over 25, which means 62% of 29,000, 29,000 times 0.62 is 17,980. Okay. So that means this whole circle is 17,980. That doesn't specify the gender, right? But we're also told that 30% of those over 25 were male, right? So 30% of these go on this side of the, so on the left-hand side of the circle. So we're told that 30% of these 17,980 were male, right? And so then we have times 0.3. So therefore, 5,394 are males over 25. Okay. So I'm going to put that number in here. And just to show that I've got this kind of distinction, oops. Look at me, pushing the limits. Pink for males. Yeah, can you believe it? So now we know the total over 25 is 17,980. And so here for the females over 25, it's going to be this half, which is 17,980 minus 5,394. 17,980 minus 5,394. 12,586. And you can just double check your math because you know that only 30% were supposed to be male, so the numbers should make sense. I know, sneaky, right? But everything you need is there. You just need to kind of be really picky when you're reading this stuff, right? So 62% of all the students were over 25, but then 30% of those over 25 were male, right? So just really picky about how you read stuff. We can figure out in the same way, we can figure out how many females there are, right? 58% of 29,000, but then we have to take away the 12,586, right? So let's see here. What's another color I can use? So 58% of 29,000, just making sure, of 29,000 were female. So 29,000 times 0.58, 16,820. And 12,586 of those have already been counted. In the over 25 group, right? So we get here 16,820 minus 12,586. Oops, 86. 4,234. And then you can do the same thing for the males. Sure, why not? Well, now you've got options, right? If you know that 58% is 16,820 and you know the total is 29,000, right? You can double check it, right? 29,000 minus, or sorry, times 0.42, 12,180, which should be the same as 29,000 minus 16,820, right? Should be the same. So then 42%, by the same logic, just to kind of tie it together, of 29,000 were male, right? Which is 12,180, or you could say 29,000 minus 16,820, 29,000, I'll just make sure, minus 16,820. Sometimes the only reason it doesn't work is if you've had to round your first answer, then you might not end up at the exact same answer. 12180, right? So you've got two ways of getting to that piece of the puzzle. So 42% of 29,000 were male, or the 29,000 minus 16,000. Of which 5,394 have already been counted. In the over 25 category. Right. So I get 12,180 minus 5,394. 6,786. 14 from 15.5. You got it. You'll just want to make sure, so just double check your math. This plus this plus this plus this should equal that 29,000. Right, so you just want to double check that that's what you get. So plus 5,394 plus 12,586 plus 4,234, 29,000. So by request, question 14 from 15.5. Do you happen to have it handy? Oh, the word ones. For each number x in the domain, the corresponding range value y is found by adding 2 to the domain value and then dividing that result into 8 added to 8 times the domain value. State the domain. Are you sure? All right, so we've got for each number x in the domain, okay, yeah, so what's the equation and then what's the domain? We'll do both. So for each number x in the domain, the corresponding range value y is found by adding 2 to the domain value and then dividing that result by 8 added to 8 times the domain value. Into critical. Yeah, I wanted to divide by. And then dividing that result into, oof, that almost got me. 8 added to 8 times the domain value. Equation domain. Okay. All right. So when we're talking about the domain value, we're talking about x, right? And so they're saying that y, is going to be 2 to the domain value. So by adding 2 to x and then dividing that result into 8 added to 8 times the domain value. So I guess there's, I don't know, I just kind of see it falling into place as I read it, and I know that doesn't help at all. So maybe let's take a step back here. Adding 2 to the domain value. That's just x plus 2, right? I'm just going to break down all the little portions and see what's going on here. And then dividing that result into 8 added to 8 times the domain value. That's going to be 8 added to 8 times the domain value. But we're dividing that result into, okay. So then we get y equals 8 plus 8x divided by x plus 2, right? Because you're dividing, so the corresponding range value y is found by adding 2 to the domain value and then dividing that result into 8 added to 8 times the domain value. And I really hope that's right. Until I hear otherwise, I'll keep going. You can pull out a common 8 here. Oh yeah. So the x plus 2 is in the bottom or in the denominator because it's found by adding 2 to the domain value. So what I did was I broke it down into little pieces. So the light blue is adding 2 to the domain value, right? Wherever you see domain value, you can just say x. And then dividing that result, so this result into, so that means it has to go in the denominator, 8 added to 8 times the domain value. Okay. So that's tricky. So if it said found by adding 2 to the domain value and then dividing that result by 8 added to 8 times the domain value, then you would just have x plus 2 over 8 plus 8x. But because you're dividing x plus 2 into 8 added to 8 times the x, that's why the x plus 2 has to go into 8 plus 8x. Words. How about, yeah. But something to keep an eye out for, right? So you want to be really careful that you're either reading by or into because it's going to make a difference. Yeah, so the 8 plus 8x is in the numerator because you're dividing 2 plus x into 8. So here's what I'm going to do. Let's write this. I'm just going to copy this. Copy. Paste. and I'm just gonna kind of edit it. For each number x in the domain, so for each number x and then x is in the domain, the corresponding range value y, the corresponding y is found by adding 2 to the domain value, is found by, and I'm going to replace this by x plus 2, and then dividing that result into 8 added to 8 times the domain value, that's the same as 8 plus 8x. So now what you've got is for each x, the corresponding y is x plus 2 dividing into 8 plus 8x. Okay. Tricky. The domain, so now, because we have this guy here, I'm going to copy. So this is the equation. So for the domain, what we have to keep track of is, as long as I can't cancel anything here, like I said, I can pull out a common 8 and have 8 times 1 plus x, but the 1 plus x wouldn't cancel with x plus 2 anyway, so I'm just going to leave it. The reason I would want to maybe try to cancel something with x plus 2 is because then I'm not dividing by anything. So then all of a sudden my domain is all real numbers if I'm just dealing with a polynomial. But I want to make sure that I'm not dividing by 0. I'm not taking the square root of a negative number, right? And if I've got a square root in the denominator, then I can't take the square root of 0 because that would give me division by 0 again, which is, it doesn't exist. So it's illegal math. And so here, for our domain, we can't divide by 0. So we must have x plus 2 not equal to 0, which means x cannot be negative 2. So our domain, if you want to use fancy set notation, right, set builder notation, it's the set of all x's such that x is not equal to negative 2. You could incorporate the set of real numbers and then pull out the negative 2, but this is just how I would write it. Nice. Good. So I know I posted the practice tests late last night, so I completely understand if you haven't had a chance to work through it. But definitely get in touch if there's something that's kind of not working the way you think it should be, or if you just want clarification on anything, just let me know, and we can just meet briefly, or I can text you, or yeah, you can text me, and we'll be all prepared for the test on Wednesday. Any questions? And then you'll be all free for the long weekend. Long because we actually get Monday off, so that's nice. For us, it's actually long. My Tuesday, Thursday classes, not so much. 2 midterms and 3 labs, all for one lousy day. It's nice to have them done before though. And we can just hang out. And there's no new material for us at least. So what can you even do for math? The monkey's off your back. Just got to get this test over with. All right. Question 1. It's not accepting your set. Oh, just double check because I think they actually have the curly brackets in there already, so you might not need the curly brackets. Let me just double check. Oh, no, you do. You do need the curly brackets. Oh yeah, for sure, Dermot. Any luck, Zach? Cool. Yeah. Niall, you included the 3 dots. What's wrong? Okay. Usually what I do for midterms is I'll try to keep them as separate as possible, and then the final exam is cumulative. So we'll do kind of test 1 is this first chunk, test 2 is going to be on the next few chapters that we do, and then the final exam will be cumulative. So, oh yeah, so the grade scope, how about what I want, okay, the grade scope for the practice test, what I want you to do is I want you to upload a submission to try it, and I'll do a completion mark for a 100% assignment mark. How about that? To really make it juicy. So your grade scope submission for the practice test will count as 1 assignment ,100% completion mark, right? If it's there and you marked all your questions, you get 100%, and that's 100% on an assignment. Oh, so your midterms, usually I like to hold back a little bit on the weighting of them. So they start off average, so they start off evenly split. And then what I like to do is if the whole class did really bad on test 1, but then we kept improving and the final exam was all good, then I'll make it worth a little bit less, but I can't know that until the end of the course. So oh, enter only the first 5 values of the set. So you might not need ... dots. Okay, good. All right. I'll stop this recording.